Look around you. This whole place is for people who want to escape, people who don't belong anywhere else.
What drove you to storytelling? What was the main thing that showed you, okay, I want to make it my passion and not only my hobby, but my dream and my work?
Gosh, that's a very good question. I think when I was a kid, I escaped into stories, but I didn't escape into reading stories. I always struggled to read them to myself. So I listened to, LPs of comedy, and I remember an actor reading The Hobbit, and I found that what I wanted to do when I was little was to do that, to talk stories into a microphone. And
so you did? You recorded
I did.
something?
I've got that. My dad has the recordings of me doing whole scripts into a microphone, just for my own, just as I love the feeling of telling a story. And even now with my own children, I love, one of the things I look forward to most in the day is reading them stories. So I guess there's something in me that loved it and needed it. Rather than listening to stories, I wanted to tell them.
So you sometimes come back to your stories from the childhood that you recorded?
Yeah. Oh no, I haven't listened to them for some time. They're quite strange. But my dad kept them.
And your first visit in the cinema, what was it?
Gosh, my first visit, the first thing I remember going to the cinema to see was probably Mary Poppins, which I loved. And I had various sort of big moments in the cinema, my first Bond movie, Live and Let Die, I remember that, and I went back again. The Jungle Book, that was big. But my first sort of the first moment that I saw a movie where I thought maybe I could make a movie, or it had an impact on the way I wanted to tell stories, was Wim Wenders' movie called Paris, Texas, which was, and still is a masterpiece. But it was the first time I'd seen a film that created a mythic landscape out of the contemporary world. It wasn't a period film. And I don't know if you know it, but the first 20 minutes is entirely silent. It's a great, great movie. And that I saw when I was a student, and that had a big influence on me. So, but I can really remember those turning points. And I can remember music that individual songs that changed my perception of music.
Then I'm curious, this was the first moment you thought, as you said, maybe I can do it. But what was the first story that you said, I want to show it on the screen? And did it pursue it, or maybe you have to drop it?
I did a play called Little Voice, and I thought, I think this could be a movie. And I wrote a screenplay of it, and I sent it to Harvey Weinstein, he owned it. I think he'd already bought the rights. And he wanted to cast it with Americans, and I said, that's not right. You need to do this with the original cast or an English cast. And I'm very pleased that he decided not to give me the movie, because a few years later I did what I suppose I really wanted to do, which was to get an original screenplay which had all the strength and the courage of a play, and that was American Beauty. And so that was the first movie script I read that had the kind of scale and the brilliance of a play.
So during your whole career, if I would ask you to say, what do you prefer, to tell someone else's stories that you receive on script, or your own? What is your favorite? What do you choose?
Well, when you read a script, you make it your story. I don't distinguish too much between a movie like American Beauty and a movie like Empire of Light. Even though I wrote Empire of Light and I didn't write American Beauty, because you author it in other ways. You cast it, you design it, and it becomes you in a way. But it's just you and someone else, and you both stand together with it. And in that case, it was a great writer, Alan Ball. But I think I think what happens though as you get older is that the chances of you finding other people's words that suit what you want to say becomes narrower and narrower, because you've made all these other stories. I'm not going to make another gangster movie. I probably won't make another war movie. I won't make another movie about suburbia. So that the options become narrower and narrower of what that you're interested to do. So I would say that there's a much stronger likelihood that I'll write or co-write my own stuff from now on. But you never know. If a script drops on your desk and you're like, this is incredible, this is exactly what I feel right now, then you're going to do it.
So what was this thing that you said, okay, my next movie will be Empire of Light, the thing that I'm writing? Is it about the cinema that is a safe haven for you and for other people that like to go there to escape from the reality, or something else was going on?
I think it was more something else was going on. I wanted to write about my childhood with growing up alone with my mother, who was bipolar, who suffered from mental illness. And I'd always tried to find a way of doing that. But I decided I didn't want to put myself in it as a character. I wanted to find a way of divorcing her journey from, there's a great, Margot Jefferson, the American author, said, how do you reveal yourself without looking for love or pity? I didn't want to look for love or pity for me, so I wanted to take that out and watch her. I wanted to make it her story. That was where it came from. And then my teenage years in the early 80s and the birth of my own political beliefs at a time of great racial upheaval and tension in the UK, that also was something I wanted. So I sort of felt the two of them together. And what brought them together was the cinema, because when I was growing up as a child, my escape was to go to the movies. My escape from my home life, which was very claustrophobic and not always happy, was to go and lose myself in the dark. So, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's a movie, it's not about the magic of film. You know, I didn't want to make cinema paradiso. It's about how if you are broken, as Olivia Colman's character is, or as Stephen's character is at one point, the movies can help put you back together again.
Yeah, but also you show cinema as a place, very magical place, but the place that is already gone. It's dying in our eyes, and you can see the levels of the cinema in your movie that are emptied, that are destroyed. Is it the way that cinema is going in your mind, that it's slowly dying?
Yes, but it won't die. It will live on, but the cinema as we knew it in the mid-20th century, as the only place you could see a film, as these temples, these meccas of, mostly that is going now. But some will remain, and I don't think it will ever die completely, because I think that it's a wonderful thing to do. And I think that the issue is, how much will it die? And I don't want it to die any more than it's already died. I want to get back up again. So obviously, we as filmmakers want the movie experience. We want a giant image. And now, of course, you can render that image so beautifully with both digital cameras and digital projection. Even though, I miss nostalgically film projection, I also know that the reality is it's a much better experience to watch a film in contemporary cinemas than it used to be. So yeah, I mean, I think, we're all part of the battle to keep movies from dying in big cinemas. These rituals that we go through, Camerimage being one of them, it's important that we come together to celebrate film and to remind ourselves what it feels like, particularly after the pandemic, to sit in a room with strangers in the dark, no masks on again, right next to your neighbor, and get lost and your imagination take flight.
And I'm curious, because you're a guy with a big name that means something in the world right now. And I'm curious, is it easier for you to push even the small projects to the big screen, or still you have to fight that it has to be a blockbuster if we will give money for it and make room for it in the lineup of the cinema?
You still have to fight. Oh, you really have to fight now. I mean, because that's one of the reasons I'm here. In order to give a smaller movie a chance to play on a big screen, in order to get an audience to come and see it, you have to play festival and a festival and a festival and a festival until there's a sort of feeling that, I read about that, I'm interested in that, or, some people liked it, some people didn't like it, I wanted to see for myself. You have to push, and you have to go on the road, and you have to work it, and because it would be easy for me to accept a big franchise film or a big movie and know that was all taken care of. It was going to open on 4,000 screens in the US, and I didn't have to go and push so hard. But I don't want movies to just be big franchise films. I want to be able to have a choice at the cinema, and I want to be able to work on a small scale and a large scale. And I, as an audience, want to be able to decide what kind of movie to see in a cinema, not have it decided for me. So, yeah, I mean, it's part of the dialogue, and particularly after the pandemic, getting older audiences back into the cinema is a big thing. And by older, I mean of my generation now, people over the age of 40, you know, and which is the difficult people to get back in because they're nervous and fearful, particularly over 60.
That's
So,
why I'm asking, because when I see the titles that are coming from the big studios like Warner, like Disney, I can see that the small stories like Empire of Light are marginalized.
Yeah.
There are not many of those.
No.
We have superhero movies, we have adventure movies, but those human stories are getting pushed away. And I'm curious, when you approach with this idea to the studio, did they say immediately yes, or you have to convince them to do it?
They say yes, but you can only have this much money, you know, which is, that's not unusual. That was the way 20 years ago as well. But, you know, when you're in a world where the studios can use the pandemic as an excuse to not release movies, so they're hiding some of them behind the pandemic. So, well, the pandemic's made it. And so what's happened is, you know, you've jumped 20 years in 2 years to the point where, you know, you look at a Disney, you remake Pinocchio, which is one of your biggest titles, with Tom Hanks, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and you put it on streaming. That's scary to filmmakers, because you think, well, if that doesn't get onto a cinema screen, what chance have we got with our movie? You know?
Warner is spending lots of money on movies that they are cancelling and throwing away. So
yeah.
You can see.
I know, exactly. I mean, that was a scary thing when they just cancelled. Was it Catwoman or whatever? Batwoman, Batgirl.
Batgirl.
And it's just gone. I mean, it's not even on streaming. It's just like, okay, that's a scary time. Yeah, it's weird. And when you have fellow filmmakers like Denis Villeneuve, you know, make Dune, and then they say it's going on to streaming, and you know, you just think, well, we should all just give up if that can't get onto. I mean, they fought the battle and they got it to where it needed to be, and it was a big success, but it was hard, and you know, so it's never been easy making films, but it doesn't feel like the system enables you at the moment. It feels like you're pushing against it the whole time. And so there is always a sort of urge to, oh, I can't be bothered to fight. Why don't I just do a movie that I know is going to go straight into the main cultural artery, you know? Let's do a Bond movie because you don't have to work so hard to make sure it's playing in cinema screens.
And you know about it because you made one.